welcome to AWS Pi Day 2022, and thanks for the introduction. And thanks to all of you for joining us today as we celebrate 16 years of innovation with S3. And we're gonna have a little bit of fun along the way. So today we're gonna really dive into how you can use S3 to keep your data protected, put your data to work to gain insights, and also to optimize your storage costs. Everyone likes to save some money along the way. But let's just dive right in. S3 was launched 16 years ago on Pi Day, March 14th, 2006, and it was the first generally available AWS service. It provides elastic, fully managed low-cost storage. It's really amazing to see how quickly the time has gone by. Last year, for our 15th anniversary, we looked back at the decade and a half of innovation and customer obsession that goes into building S3. If this is your second straight year joining us, then welcome back. And if you're tuning in for the first time, then we're very happy to have you here. Thanks for joining. For nostalgia's sake, I looked back at Amazon S3's initial press release, and it's really interesting to see that the foundational building blocks that we initially laid out when we started building the service still remain pretty true today. We launched saying that S3 provides highly scalable, reliable, low latency storage at very low cost, and that S3 is storage for the internet. Throughout the day, you're going to see how this foundation and the vision really remains pretty consistent with what we said 16 years ago. But at the same time, we've really been continuously improving S3 with dozens of new features and capabilities to continue offering the most comprehensive, functional, secure, and proven storage for your business. So Pi Day is first and foremost going to be an educational event today, and we have a great lineup of speakers for today's sessions. But before we do that, what's a birthday celebration without a little bit of celebration of the fun things you can now do as you grow up? So today's going to be no different. The first thing is, well, S3 can now legally drive. So whether it's in a car or on a moped, just look out for that bucket in the front seat behind the wheel wherever you're driving. S3 can now also buy a lottery ticket. It might be a little bit concerning if it buys a scratch ticket, because I don't know how a bucket would be able to really scratch that off. But, you know, it's a bucket. So some pretty awesome things that the object storage can also do. One of them is now that they can now be a pilot to a hang glider. That is something you also have to be 16-year-olds to be able to do. And so again, look out for that. And S3 can really help you take you to some new heights. And then, speaking of piloting things, which is something I work into almost every conversation, I have a joke for you. So what do you call a dessert that flies a plane? It's a pilot. Now, there we go. I'll be here all week. Lastly, S3 can now get its own passport without any parental supervision. I know S3 has been traveling the world, helping you wherever you are in regions around the world, but be prepared for now even bigger and better world traveler with S3. So the launch of S3 back in 2006 really set off a wave of innovation that ushered in just cloud and computing infrastructure as a service. The scale of S3 is really immense. Actually, today we store more than 200 trillion objects. We have processed more than 100 million requests per second. And the 200 trillion objects works out to be around 26,000 objects per person on Earth. But one of my favorite facts about S3 is how it automatically saves customers money. Just over 3 years ago, we launched S3 Intelligent Tiering, which is a storage class that automatically reduces your storage costs for data that's not being accessed. Since then, customers have saved more than $250 million, $250 million, and those savings just keep accumulating. One of the things that we commonly say in AWS is that we still think and act like it's day one. And today we recognize that this is actually the 5,844th day one for S3, but it's still day one. And that means that we anchor on how we can just relentlessly focus on delivering what customers need and improve S3 so that you can continue storing and protecting any amount of data for virtually any use case. In just the last year, just this last year, we've launched 24 new significant S3 features, price cuts, and new training. And we're just not planning on slowing down anytime soon. Even before 2020, we talked with dozens and hundreds of customers about how they can use modern technology like S3 to transform their businesses. The last few years, of course, we've seen that number increase even faster as organizations of all sizes and industries really look to reinvent themselves around data to fuel insights and predictions that lead to better decision-making and innovation. Data-driven organizations treat data like an asset. They make it available and accessible to the right teams so that they can put it to work to enable better and more informed decisions. For example, financial service businesses like Capital One use data to make faster credit card risk decisions. Manufacturing companies like Cisco or Georgia-Pacific use their data lake for real-time analytics to optimize predictive maintenance and their assembly line clock rates to save millions of dollars in preventing downtime of their manufacturing. And that is the core of an enterprise data lake, creating a centralized source of data for the organization that's cost-effective, secure, and has elastic scale so that you can easily provision access and teams always have access to the right data. The benefits of being a data-driven organization are clear, and so companies that don't embrace this risk falling behind in this transformation that's happening. Forrester recently stated that for a typical Fortune 1000 company, just a 10% increase in data accessibility will result in more than $65 million of net additional income. Forrester also estimates that data-driven businesses are growing at an average of more than 30% annually. It's a pretty fast growth rate. Almost every organization has access to data that they aren't capturing today. So whether it's rich data about how customers interact with websites or mobile applications, do sentiment analysis from customer service calls, or gathering metrics about in-person interactions, the first step is identifying the data sources that helps shine a light on the business performance, as well as collecting and storing that data and then putting it to work. To effectively use that data, organizations need to cultivate a data-driven culture. Data alone can't unlock any value. According to Accenture report, 55% of companies have a mostly manual approach to discovering data within their enterprise, and only 28% have a strategy in place to take advantage of analytics tools and infrastructure throughout the enterprise. Today, you're going to learn about best practices and tools to improve your organization's data-driven posture to help better prepare you and your organization for the future by building an enterprise data lake on Amazon S3. A modern data architecture recognizes that there really isn't any one-size-fits-all when it comes to the tools and software to process and analyze data. It's not simply about integrating a data lake with a data warehouse, but rather about integrating a data lake, a data warehouse, purpose-built data stores, and then enabling unified governance and easy data management across that. With a modern data architecture on AWS, you can rapidly build scalable data lakes, use a broad and deep collection of purpose-built data services, and ensure compliance via unified data access, security, and governance. All of this you can do while scaling at a low cost without compromising performance and being able to easily share data across the different boundaries that exist in an organization, therefore allowing you to make decisions with faster speed and more agility. For example, to accelerate innovation and democratize data usage at scale, the BMW Group migrated their on-premises data lake to one powered by S3. And BMW now processes terabytes of telemetry data from millions of vehicles daily, and then they resolve issues before they impact customers using that data. Or take the example of Nielsen, which is a global measurement and data analytics company, and they drastically increased the amount of data that they could ingest and process by taking advantage of this modern cloud technology. Nielsen went from measuring 40,000 households daily to now measuring more than 30 million. And storage is just the foundation for a modern data architecture. Through 16 years of continuous innovation, S3 has offered leading scalability, data availability, and performance, allowing you to store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere in the world. And I'm just excited to actually update you on all the Amazon S3 innovation from this past year. Customers have always want to save more money on storage. That's a truism I've never heard someone argue with me about. And so archive data and data that has an unknown or a changing access pattern arguably has the most need for that optimization. At AWS, we do believe that archive data is it's just data that's not currently in use. And so what we want to provide and do provide are ways that you don't have to make decisions about which data you keep and which data you discard. You can store it all at low cost and use only what you need when you need it. For data that has that unknown or changing access pattern, first off, that describes a lot of data in typical organizations, especially when you're just getting started and trying to figure out how best to put that data to work. And that's the essence of why we launched S3 Intelligent Tiering about 3 years ago. S3 Intelligent Tiering is the only cloud storage class that delivers automatic storage cost savings when data access patterns change without performance impact or operational overhead. And we've just continued to improve and add capability to S3 Intelligent Tiering, and we now recommend that this is the default storage class that customers use for data lakes. Customers often need to store petabytes of data that's only accessed occasionally, maybe quarterly, but the data needs to be immediately accessible when required. For example, customers have large photo or video archives, And we heard from all of you that you wanted a combination of the low storage costs that we had in S3 Glacier and the fast retrieval times that we would have in S3 standard infrequent access, so that you can better meet those data access needs at a lower cost point. And so last year at reInvent in December, we announced S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. And this is a new storage class that has millisecond level access for archive data at a cost of just 0.004 per gigabyte month. S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval provides you with the lowest cost data with millisecond access to your archives. And you won't be able to get this powerful combination really anywhere else. The very day that we launched S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval, we also made it available as an automatic access tier in S3 Intelligent Tiering for that data that had that unknown or changing access pattern. So now you get the benefit of automatic cost optimization and the lowest cost for rarely accessed data that requires immediate retrieval. Any objects that aren't accessed for 30 consecutive days are automatically moved to the infrequent access tier that's 40% lower storage costs. And then now, with S3 Intelligent Tiering, it automatically delivers storage cost savings of another 68% for objects that aren't accessed for 90 consecutive days. And that's without any retrieval fees. So you don't need to compromise on access times. The data is immediately accessible. And customers with that data in Intelligent Tiering and the data that's not accessed for 90 days, customers that were using that when we launched that automatically got access to that. And so that day they automatically saved money without any more work on their part. And of course, you can get started today. Also new from reInvent in December, we've actually renamed the S3 Glacier storage class to S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. We also introduced that it now provides free bulk retrievals, making it really optimized for backup and disaster recovery type needs, and other needs where you might have to access data once or twice a year. We also cut the price of S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval, and we cut the price by 10%, so it's now 0.0036 per gigabyte a month. And we also reduced storage prices up to 31% for our S3 standard infrequent access and S3 one zone infrequent access across 9 different regions. And so this is just an example of the continuing work we do to reduce prices and pass those along to you. With all of these new announcements, we can say that S3 Glacier now meets the widest range of archive storage needs, enabling retrieval times that range from milliseconds to hours, depending on the performance requirements. And using Glacier, you now pay as little as $1 per terabyte month for storage, with all Glacier storage having the resiliency of being stored in 3 independent availability zones. With the rapid growth of data, we recommend an archive strategy to support your future growth at the lowest possible storage cost. For rarely accessed data that needs that millisecond retrieval, that's where you can use S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. For data with changing access patterns where you want to automatically archive it based on the last access of the data, use S3 Intelligent Tiering. For archive data that doesn't require immediate access but needs the flexibility to retrieve large sets of it at no cost, such as for backup or disaster recovery, that's where you can use S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. And to get the absolute lowest storage cost in the cloud for example, compliance records, archived video footage or historic data sets, you can use S3 Glacier Deep Archive. So these Amazon S3 Glacier storage classes are purpose-built for data archiving, providing you with the highest performance, most retrieval flexibility, and just the lowest cost archive storage in the cloud. And just like data archiving, we'd like to say that S3 really is the best place to build data lakes. One of the biggest architectural transformations that we're seeing in how storage is used is that concept of an enterprise data lake. Hundreds of thousands of data lakes run on AWS, and S3 allows you to migrate, store, manage, and secure any kind of data, structured or unstructured data, at an unlimited scale, breaking down those data silos that often exist. Amazon S3 is the only cloud storage service that lets you manage data at the object, bucket, and account level, making changes across tens of billions of objects with a few clicks, configure granular data access policies, save costs by storing objects across numerous storage classes, and then audit all activities across your S3 resources. S3 has unmatched durability, availability, and scalability. We deliver 11 nines of durability, and we really designed from day one to protect data by storing it across 3 independent data centers. That's what we call a region. Other cloud providers have at times tried to confuse matters by calling a single data center a region, but the reality is that the availability and durability of our standard regional storage is often better than what others refer to as multi-region storage. S3 has the most options for migrating data. We have over 17 different ways to get data in and out of the cloud, depending on where the data is and the nature of your application. And finally, S3 just has the broadest ecosystem of integrations with both our native services like Redshift, as well as a marketplace of analytics and data lakes tools and software through our AWS Marketplace for our partners like Databricks, Snowflake, Cloudera, Dremio, Qubole, and Splunk. And we just haven't stopped there. We've continued to launch new features and integrations to make it even easier for you to build your data lake on S3. And you'll hear more about these features throughout the day, but I'll give you a brief introduction. We make it easier to get data into your data lake with Private Link for S3, which keeps your data within a VPC, a private cloud, and you can synchronize your data by replicating existing objects with S3 batch replication. That's a recent launch. This makes it super easy to get started and to protect your existing data by replicating it to another bucket, whether in the same or another region. And then just a few weeks ago, we introduced new checksum options to accelerate integrity checking of data. One of the things we've learned over 16 years of operating S3 is that every bit of data needs to be checksummed, wherever it is. And procedures need to be implemented to verify these checksums whenever data is being consumed. So we think that the best checksums are really end-to-end. The checksum is created at the very moment that data comes into being, and then it's checked at the very end when it's being consumed, all the way through storage. So we do this, of course, for all data in S3. But with the new checksum options we've introduced, we're making it simpler to extend these checksums into your own application. So we now support SHA-1 and SHA-256, along with checksum algorithms optimized for performance, like CRC32C. And we also now support trailing checksums, making it even easier to handle streaming data. So we've made it easier to checksum individual parts of a multi-part object, and also then to retrieve the per-part checksums for comparisons. Finally, last year we introduced access point aliases, which now means that you can use S3 access points with any application that requires an S3 bucket name to access data, while providing the right level of access to the right teams. So in addition, we also launched S3 multi-region access points to accelerate the performance of replicated data sets and to increase your resiliency for critical data by taking advantage of our global infrastructure footprint. And then finally, we've added some enhancements to S3 object ownership at reInvent, which means you can now disable access control lists, or ACLs, which really simplifies data management for your data lake. And this last feature is something that we've just seen a lot of customers start to use right away. With the speed of data growth and innovation, we understand that it's a lot to keep up with, and that's especially true if you're just getting started learning AWS and storage. Right now, cloud computing is the #1 in-demand capability that employers are looking for. And many of you have often asked us, how do I really get into AWS storage and training and certification so that I can spend more time learning each of the most important aspects that we see around cloud storage? And so we are now pleased to offer an official badge that accompanies coursework that follows a curriculum that we've designed to give you that knowledge. So with the AWS Cloud Storage badges, which are free of charge, you can earn them by completing a storage learning plan that's backed by us. These learning plans are actually available now, and badges for successful completion have already started rolling out with our object storage and block storage. So with these badges, you can demonstrate your AWS storage knowledge and skills with potential employers, as well as your peers. And we're going to just continue adding modules around things like data protection, disaster recovery, and other topics throughout 2022. And again, this is all available to you free of charge. Throughout the day, we have 12 different technical sessions for you. And by the end of the day, you're going to learn things like why S3 is the best place to build your data lake and transform your archive, how S3 is architected for the elasticity, security, availability, and durability that I mentioned, as well as best practices to help you secure your data, optimize costs, and gain insights. The first part of today is going to focus on data protection and security, and the latter half of the day will focus on putting your data to work to optimize and transform it. And the day is going to conclude with some remarks from Jeff Barr, who is AWS's chief evangelist, and he's going to give his unique perspective on S3 over the last 16 years, as well as just talk through what it takes to become a data pioneer. All right. It's been a long-standing S3 tradition on Pi Day that we eat some good pie, and we encourage you to do the same today. This year, S3's official pie supplier for Pi Day is Baked from the Heart, a local Seattle Black-owned small business that makes some truly amazing pies. I just had one. We want to really thank Bill Hart, the owner, for his help keeping us all fed and fueled for this next wave of innovation. AWS is really committed to helping all builders and businesses realize their dreams. So welcome to Pi Day. Thank you for your time, and I hope you get a lot of value out of today's sessions. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. All right, so Kevin just shared with us a bunch of recent innovations from S3, basically talking about what it means to be a data pioneer. And if you wanted to learn anything more in detail about the things that Kevin brought up about S3's durability, security, ability to optimize costs, its global reach, how to deal with data lakes, how to build your skills in the cloud around storage, you're in the right place. This is a full day worth of content that's going to drill in detail in many of the things that you just heard about. So as Kevin mentioned, our pie supplier is Baked from the Heart Pies here in Seattle today, and you can see in front of us we have a bunch of these little pies. So Steve, tell us a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about the pies for Pi Day.
Okay, so Baked from the Heart, H-A-R-T, that's our official pie supplier. So basically, the pies are going to be first come, first served. There are limited quantities starting today until basically Bill runs out. Okay.
And they're these nice tiny little
they are tiny little pies, yeah.
Single-serving pies.
We are actually doing our best to work through these through the day. So get in there, get your pies. You'll find more details. Excuse me, I put my teeth back from the last pie. You got more details, go to AWS On Air on Twitter. You'll find more information there. Be sure to thank Bill and share a picture of your pie on Twitter using the hashtags Pi Day, P-I Day, and Baked from the Heart, H-A-R-T.